Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award, we're going to get there, words are stuck, multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. How long have I been doing this? If you were to the very, very first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're of course on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we are on Blue Sky too. It's Avengers Assemble! Honestly, what a week, what a month. Gotta have a holiday, gotta have a break. We'll get around to that soon. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Last Word on Spurs, where we will be hearing live and direct from Thomas Frank's first interview as Tottenham Hotspur head coach. Yes, you heard that first. We'll be also digging in, revealing the fixtures that have already been populated ahead of the new season. I know what you're thinking. I've just got over it. We've got to go again, and we are going to go again. Helping us go again, dissect, break it down on here by request. My lover, my man. Back off, TJ Ramini's wife. TJ Ramini's back on the show. TJ, how are you? Lovely to have you here. Oh, God, we're back
Lovely
again.
to see you, mate. What an intro, but potentially one of the best introduction of my life. Nice to see you. Great to be on the show. And what an illustrious panel. Like you said, we were just talking in the green room, and I was talking to Ricky earlier today, and I've been watching all the shows, and God, what a time. What an exciting time. And I was saying that I love Jim and Billy's insight, and I'd love to be on the show with them. And Rick said, listen, man, I can get you on today if you can make it happen. So here I am, delighted to be on the show, an illustrious panel, looking forward to being informed and enlightened as I always am. Welcome to the viewers and listeners. Let's have a great show.
Dude, we love you very much. Always dump me and Marlon in the background of the process there. Dumping the other lover.
It's over.
It's over. Miles is back for the Spurs Kings. Miles, how are you?
Look, I'm good.
We have got
yeah, I'm good. You know, look, I ain't done this for so long. Like, I'm on my holiday break and I can't remember to press mute or unmute at the moment. No, I'm all good, Ricky. Glad to be back and kind of we're here. New manager, new season. Here we go.
Here we go again. This was meant to be the break part, wasn't it? We don't get a break. I forgot about that. We don't get a break. One man who hasn't had a break with me the last couple of weeks, and even we've got comments coming through asking him to blink twice if he's being held hostage. We've got Jim from Oh So Spurs. Jim, how are you? Lovely to be back alongside us here.
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. As I said last time, my wife thinks you're my paramour, Ricky. I'm sneaking off to see all the time, but no, I'm really good. I'm really enjoying being on the show, and look, I'm pretty pleased we've got the interview to talk about. You know, trying to talk about fixtures for an hour in isolation would have been an interesting challenge, but we've got some really good stuff to chat about. So yeah, looking forward to it.
I don't know, Jim. I mean, you know what we're like. I'm sure we would have made it work. I'm sure we would have done.
We would have.
Tottenham being Tottenham, they have to always throw something in. As about throwing something in, we're throwing something amazing in. Is the wonderful, the exceptional, twice in 24 hours. God, we're blessed. Billie T's back. Bill, how are you? Lovely to have you here.
Yeah, good, man. I've been enjoying my phone calls on my way home saying, Rick, have you seen what's just dropped on Twitter? Jesus Christ. We've got to change the show again. Someone just mentioned in the comments as well, so I've got to show it. This is my official custom-made Emerson Royale statue.
Look at that.
Him
Superb. Brilliant.
Solid metal. There you go. This is my good luck charm, and this is going to give us good luck this season. It won us Europe.
I think if you wanted an Emerson Royale statue, Billy, it would have to be custom made, wouldn't it?
Of course. Unless he wins us the Champions League when he comes back, and then we can get one outside the ground.
Love that. Superb. The wonderful Billie T back. Well, listen, we've all assembled. Thomas Frank, not only is he in the building, he has given us his first interview as Spurs head coach. We're going to hear from Thomas Frank. We're going to dig into those fixtures that have been announced. Of course, Tottenham starting their Premier League season at home to promoted Burnley. They will then face Manchester City away. We've, of course, got to cover the London derbies on this show, which, as Bill has said on a numerous amount of occasions, so important to many, many fans at this football club ahead of the new season. But look, we've kept you waiting for enough time. We've been asked, where is Thomas Frank? What's happening with Thomas Frank? Let's hear from him. This is Thomas Frank's first interview as Tottenham Hotspur head coach.
The feeling of being new head coach is extraordinary. Really looking forward to this massive challenge together with a lot of good people. I only heard good stuff about all the people here, the training ground, the players, good squad, exciting, massive club. I think massive potential. So just super excited. I think as probably every boy or girl, I just love to to play football when I was running around in my hometown. Probably pretty soon found out that I was never going to be a professional football player. So now and then I just started early coaching when I was 20 years old, and then I've been coaching for 30 plus years. First grassroots level academy football. Went into my first senior head coach job at Brøndby. It's a massive club in Denmark. Went to England on a journey, first as assistant manager and then the head coach, and had an unbelievable journey in Brentford. A fantastic time with fantastic staff, players and fans. They've done a very, very good process. I would say Daniel Levy and Vinay and Johan Lange have had very good conversations and meetings with them where we discussed everything in depth, details about the club structure, processes, and of course I came with my view on things and how I saw it and my ideas and the way I want to do things and how I try to build a team and a club. And of course it's not me. I think it's very important to say yes. The head coach is an important person, but if I don't have good people around me, it's impossible. You can't do anything alone, in my opinion. If you want to do something quick, you can go alone. If you want to do something big or achieve something big, you go together. So it's definitely a thing about doing things together, me, staff, players. I think the alignment is key from top to bottom, and of course it starts from Daniel and Vinay and Johan. And me, and the more the four of us can be aligned, just like a unit and like an unbreakable unit, the stronger we will be. And there'll be ups and downs. I think it's right now it's a fairy tale. Everyone is happy, the sun is shining, it's fantastic, but we haven't played one game yet. Hopefully we'll win a lot. We'll work very hard every single day to make sure we create as many magic moments for the fans. And put them together, and hopefully in the end of the season it will be a very good season. But the alignment in terms of structure, processes, transfers, squad, playing style, culture, all that is key. I think in terms of my style of play, I'll explain it a little bit now, but I rather wanna, how can I say, show it. You can talk a lot, but I think it's more what we show, what we try to do. But in few words, the intention is to play aggressive, front-footed football. And I know the ethos and the history of the club is massive on attacking football, and I think there's so much attacking talent in the squad. I'm very excited about that. They've clearly shown over the last 2 seasons that the ability to score goals is fantastic, and I'm very, very in on that. I love a team that is scoring goals, very, very big on principles, what we do on the final third in terms of creating chances, crosses, bring balls in the box, play behind and stuff like that. I think it's key. So just want to build on that attacking football we already have here in the club. I'm a big believer, I always say this one-liner, if you don't take risk, you also take risk. So I think it's important that we take risk. And risk is, for example, if we play man-man in some situations, risk is you need to play forward. If you don't risk the ball, you can't create anything. So I'm a big believer of that. We need to be brave. The players need to be brave when we play, and they need to trust themselves. So I will do my very best to install that trust, and the players need to be brave. For me, if they lose the ball by trying, it's never a problem for me. Of course, I can react, it's natural, but they need to do that. But if they don't work hard, that I struggle more with that. So if they do everything they can and they lose the ball or they try, no problem. But it's more if they don't work hard, that's my non-negotiable. But we need to take risk. Of course, if we don't take risk, it's impossible to achieve something big. I think it's a very talented squad. I think it's a very good squad. Very excited about starting working with them. And of course, when you follow Premier League, you see the other teams. Of course, I've seen Tottenham. I've seen some fantastic performances from the team over the last years, and I'm very excited about that. So I think there's big potential in it. But of course, I'm looking for the outside. So I'm looking forward to get to know them, to be around them, to feel them, to understand them, to work with them on a training pitch. And that's where you really get the big understanding and understand the relationships between players and how you can get the best out of them. Of course, I got an idea already. My head is spinning. How can we play? How can we put them together and all that? But I'm looking forward to that. When I say talented, it's also it's not only the young players. It's also some of the more experienced players. How can we get the best out of them? Let's say Dominic Solanke. I'm a big fan of him in terms of his abilities. I'm sure we'll make him score a lot of goals. How can we play? Bentancur, Madison. These. How can we get that? But of course, the younger ones as well. I think it's all players that we need to develop and make perform on the highest level. But of course, Bergwell, Archie Gray, Odegaard, Udogie, all of them, I think have a high ceiling. There's others I haven't mentioned. I can mention the whole squad, and I'm looking forward to it. It's always about winning. Okay, we need to make the team win on a Saturday and a Tuesday, and then a Saturday and then on a Wednesday. But it's also about develop the individual player. And that's me and my staff and the player. So how we work together about that on a day-to-day basis. Because if we lift the players' performance or develop them, the team will grow, perform better, hopefully opportunities to win more matches. First and foremost, I think it's a fantastic fan base. I think the fans is the most important ones. It's the team, staff, me, all of us. How can we make sure we create enough magic moments with the fans? Make moments they remember. They can get hopefully excited about. It's about that, and also that we go on a journey together. And on a journey, there'll be ups and downs, and it's how we get through these ups and downs together. But of course, the connection from the team to the fans, from me to the fans, is going to be crucial. And a very important thing is to make our home Tottenham Hotspur's stadium like a fortress. And that can only be the fans and us, the team, together. So that needs to be an ongoing relationship, ongoing, how can you say, situation we need to build, because I want our home to be very, very difficult to come to, and that we can only do together. Huge congratulations to the club, to the team. Huge congratulations to Ange. So he forever be a legend in Tottenham, and congratulations to him for that. I think it's very important to understand that we all stand on the shoulders of others. So I'm going in on the foundation that Ange have built and his coaching staff, and I'm very humble about that, and I'll do my very best to continue the great work you've put in. But the feeling and the excitement and the joy and the happiness you could see in the fans' face and the pictures you saw was wow. So hopefully we can create more of those moments. That will be the ultimate dream, to do that and build on that. And they, hey, no one can say they're not winners. The team and the players are winners. Now we need to do best so we can become serial winners in the future.
There you go. Thomas Frank's first interview as Tottenham Hotspur head coach. And just that final line that he said, this team are already winners. Now it's about trying to make them serial winners. What a line that is. Look, I think there's a mixture of feelings from what I'm seeing from around the Spurs community with regards to that interview, the style of it, the format of it. I don't know what it is. I mean, this is just my personal opinion. It's that grabs me when you're seeing a man stood there with the Tottenham Hotspur cockerel on his chest, talking passionately about our football club. And TJ, I'll start with you, because that's actually the first time you've personally seen that interview. Quite interestingly, he name drops Solanke, Bentancur, Madison, and the younger players like Bergwall, Gray, Odegaard, and Udogie.
Yeah.
He also talks about a real classy touch, I think, to Ange Postecoglou, and the fact of what he has done in terms of laying those foundations with regards to the trophy success. There's no mention at all of Spurs captain Heung-Min Son in that interview, which might be quite telling. Discusses what his style of play will be, the element of having to take risks with the ball, which is a massive part of his game. And I think the thing that we all loved with Tottenham, definitely under the Pochettino era, at the very, coming towards the end of it was how he made White Hart Lane an absolute fortress. I know Bill, for example, changed for Spurs. I know that's always been a key fundamental about making that stadium a fortress. What were your takeaways for you, TG, from that interview?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I mean, he's an extremely lucid and articulate individual, isn't he? You know, he's a really intelligent man. Lots of talk about him being the professor, data-driven. It's so difficult. I mean, that is my first time seeing that, right? My first time hearing it. So am I not excited? I mean, I'm excited to kind of get started. You know, I'm excited before every season begins. I do think it was a well-crafted interview, and I mean that in both senses of the word. He's an erudite, intelligent individual, so he's never going to be stuck for the right thing to say at the right time. I also think he's been in the country for a long time. He understands the culture. I think he understands the job that he's taking on. The thing is that we were talking again in the green room before we started the show, not to kind of dull people's enthusiasm. And like I said, I'm excited to get started. The problem is with Tottenham is that we've been here so many times before. That's the only issue. And that's nothing to do with Thomas Frank. There's no slight on his personality or the things that he's said or the system that he wants to implement or the culture that is fundamental to him. We've spoken numerous times. I've heard it said numerous times on the show, whether I'm on it or whether I'm not on it, about the no dickheads policy, which is wonderful. That's very important. And I think that that will help to weed out any negativity that we potentially have in or around the club. And I think that's very important. I have also spoken before, as have numerous others, about the minutiae, like the tiny margins, that 1 or 2% to a player's belief, confidence, contributions, performances that make such a difference in the upper echelons of sport. So where I'm excited about Thomas Frank is one thing, really, is that he is famous for being able to develop young players. And we do have a very young squad. The fact that he did mention players that the Tottenham community the world over are constantly talking about. We're always talking about Archie Gray. We're talking about Lucas Bergvall. Of course, how important Bentancur when he's playing to the best of his ability. He's so important to us. We're talking about potential with Odegaard and Matisse Tell. And then, of course, also people have said on this show, you know, I love Dom Solanke. Did he score enough goals? No, he didn't. But, you know, poor guy was given crumbs all season. And for me, as a tireless worker and an egoless player, and I think he will work really well with somebody like Thomas Frank. So I'm excited to see his development of our players. I said about Ange, and I was a supporter of Ange, as you know, I really was. My only criticism of him really is I couldn't put my hand on my heart and say which are the players in the squad that he has truly improved, other than Basuma for the last sort of 3 or 4 games. I'm not discrediting that. That was very important, and he was very important to us. But I'm most excited about the coach who can inspire, enthuse, and hopefully really motivate young players.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, bless you, you've been with us over the last 24 hours over 2 shows, which for all of us, it weren't going to happen. Let's be honest about it, but this is what Tottenham do. This is what they do to us. You were here, obviously, when we discussed the, I think Daniel Levy interview that only again dropped 24 hours prior to us recording the show. What's your main takeaways from that interview with regards to Frank? He talks about joining Spurs, the pathway, working with the hierarchy, the style of play, taking of risks, making the stadium a fortress, developing players, the importance of the Tottenham fans, the importance of winning and continuing that winning culture. What were your main takeaways for you?
Again, I would echo what I said yesterday about the statement from yesterday from our chairman and CEO. He said all the right things, without a doubt. And I think, as I said yesterday, and as TJ was just saying, I think that we were saying before the show as well, I do think there has been a clear change in direction from PR and improvement on that from the early signs that we see. I think the sounds that are looking like Vinay, is excellent at PR, which is why all the communication so far from the club is hitting the right notes, it's hitting the right tone. It's talking about the things that fans want to hear, like attacking football, winning trophies. I think it was a really classy touch to mention Ange as well, because I think a lot of the fan base are still emotionally connected to Ange. I think that's not going to disappear. You know, he gave most of us the best night of our lives. So that emotion is not going to disappear. So it was nice to name check that and reference that. I think that was a really classy touch. And
Bill, can I
we've
ask
now
you
had
a
a-
question, mate?
course you
Sorry
can.
to interrupt you, because we were talking about this shift in PR. Do you know, or does anybody know, if there has been an actual change? Have new people come in, or is it just a new directive? Sorry to interrupt you, mate.
So all I know is Donna Collin was certainly in charge of PR at Tottenham. Most of
Okay.
the statements that come out were from her.
Because it's a really visible, noticeable shift. It's so polished.
Yeah, and I know, Donna Collin. I know lots of the support groups, and have come out and said that Donna Collin did a fantastic work with them. And I'm not shading that work that she did. I think it's just simply a change of tack, change of direction, and a fresh voice. And I think that's really coming through in the videos and the things that they're doing at the moment. And I think it is simply a case of the fact that Vinay is maybe overseeing that, and a lot of the Arsenal fans, spoke about the fact that he's a really, really good communicator. And I think we're seeing that now from both, the two videos that we've had. And I think the important thing for me is both our chairman, our CEO, and our manager have all spoken about winning trophies. And now it's time to, as we said yesterday, they've talked the talk. Now it's time to walk the walk.
Amen. Totally agree on that point. Miles, let's come to you. Your main takeaways from you personally from that interview. A 7-minute interview, quite in depth about a lot of different points. I mentioned no mention of Heung-Min Son, a lot about developing the younger players, the fact of building that connection with the Tottenham fans. Again, the fact of not just stopping at the Europa League. Daniel Levy and Vinay Venkates's closing words of their interview was, we want to win the Premier League. We want to win the Champions League. Thomas Frank's closing words of his interview is that this team are winners. We want to make them serial winners. Very much in alignment, like Bill has said.
Yeah, but look, nothing against Thomas Frank. Look, and I know I really wanted to love that interview. I really did, but it just I've heard it all before, and that was going through my head. And I think when we go look at yesterday's interview and the whole Daniel Levy episode, and he mentions Daniel Levy in it, I think they're not reading the room in that part. They're trying to make Daniel Levy now to be like we had this before under Donna. He works hard, he does this, he does that, but actions speak louder than words. And unfortunately, in my head right now, I'm going, in 18 months' time, in 2 years, are we going to be exactly back where we are? Because this is all new. That for Vinay and Thomas, this is all new. They haven't been here. They haven't had to struggle with what we've had to for the last 24 years. Yep. Daniel Levy is like this. If everyone goes back to the forum when Ange took over, all that positivity that we had, oh my God, he's brilliant, he's this, he's that. And then all of a sudden, that relationship breaks down at some point. And it's when we start going through that bad form. Don't know when that will be. But I'm looking at it going, I really don't want to ruin Thomas Frank, because I look at everything that he said and he could be great for this club. He could actually be great for this club. But for me, it's all going to come down to what happens with the man upstairs. And the interview yesterday, I just looked at it and I went, Vinay, you're trying to push Daniel Levy onto the fans right now, and I wouldn't even bother, because he is a big part of the problem. And when you start going to talk to hopefully the supporter groups like you mentioned and start looking at this community, you're going to start seeing that one man is the one reason why we've been held back for years. And for me right now, I'm looking at that interview. I heard when Conte came in, I've heard it when Mourinho came in, I've heard it when Poch came in. So you can clearly see at the moment, I'm not overawed by it all, but I think Thomas Frank will do a job to a certain point. But it's all about, Levy mentions he wants to win the Premier League and Champions League. I'm sorry, that was not, after the summer you gave Ange, don't be sitting there saying that you want to win those things and expecting him to do well in the league. And now with Thomas Frank coming in, I'm expecting a decent summer window because of what was said yesterday. They've set the bar. They've set the bar. And for me, I'm looking at Thomas Frank going, he could be, like, I'm sitting there, he could be incredible for this club.
Yep.
But there's only going to be one thing that holds it back. I love the way he came across in it. I can imagine a lot of us will be jumping up on it. It's absolutely brilliant the way he's come across. But again, it's all PR, and I'm not getting suckered in. I'm sorry, I'm not getting suckered in straight away. And he said, he mentioned a great point. It's all good right now, but wait till that first game happens. We've had those first couple of games in, and then we have that first big game against City. And I know we're going to talk about fixtures, but wait till we've had them games, and we'll start to see where we're at. And that's where I am right now. I'm not. Look, I just won the Europa League with Ange, and I'm glad they mentioned him, but it's just there's a lot of things in both in what was said yesterday and what was said today that still I'm kind of going. I can't get on board.
I think it's fine to be like that, because the reality is that, you know, we've had Daniel here for what is now a quarter, you know, of a century, 25 years. That the reality is that you want to see somebody that walks, not only walk the walk, but talk the talk. And the reality is that when you set that bar coming over to you, Jim, saying, I want to win the Premier League, want to win the Champions League. You've got the manager saying now in Thomas Frank that this is a group of winners. We want to make them serial winners. Well, you better know that, you know, a ratio wage to revenue perspective of 42%, it's going to be very, very hard to achieve those goals, to realise those aims based on that wage structure, unless you're going to be very, very lucky with the players that you buy, and they're going to be incredibly developed by Thomas Frank, who, to be fair, does have a record of developing players. But also, like a lot of managers have found under Enoch and under Daniel Levy, you always reach a certain point in that ceiling where, as far and as hard as you punch, you just simply can't break through to that next level, that next stage. So, Jim, what was your takeaway from that interview itself?
Yeah, I don't want to dwell too much on what's already been said by everyone, really. And those were the points around it being more well articulated, the PR department improvements. And I think everyone spotted the obvious, that it feels like this was more well organized by the club, and it was a bit more of the behavior you expect from like a big blue chip organization like Tottenham are, really, in the sense that they've clearly set 5 key values and themes that will be reverberated throughout the season. And that is thanking the previous era. That is data is everything. That is the goal is now trophies. It's not just to do well in the league. That is, they keep saying compete on all fronts. So Frank was saying, he said about, I always want to do well on a Saturday and give you that joy, and on a Tuesday as well. And Levy mentioned 2 or 3 times in all competitions and on all fronts. So I think they're trying to get those themes in. And lastly, they all capped it off with, but the most important thing is you fans. So I take that as a positive, in the sense that we all asked for those things. And it feels like they've gone away, looked at the feedback, looked at what everyone's been asking, and they've decided to make and include those in part of their plan under this new era. And I am excited for Frank, and I believe it was the right decision to bring him in the end, even though I'd have liked to see what was in the mystery box in the next 6 months with Ange. You know, I can't blame anyone for disagreeing with me there when you're 17th. And I think if you're going to move on from Ange, Frank is the right decision. But I can understand why some people sit there with an eyebrow raised and their arms crossed, with a feeling of skepticism, whilst everyone else around them are jumping up and down with excitement. They're looking up behind Frank holding the mic and the crowd all cheering. And I think, Marlon, like yourself, you can just see Daniel's face in the window behind in the distance. And you're like, I've seen that smirk before. I just don't trust you are gonna take us there. And look, you can't blame anyone for that. But I'm kind of the mindset that I've never seen them take this much feedback on board. I've never seen us have a CEO who's going to be involved in so many decisions to kind of make sure they're a voice in Levy's ear for everything he does, at least guiding him. And so far, Levy seems to be doing what he's being told to do by that person. So I do think there needs to be the balance of, yes, not taking it all as like, this is definitely going to happen, we're back, we're going to win the Premier League. But it should be taken with a pinch of, maybe we do treat this as okay, you do have a final clean slate. I know you've had 20 clean slates, but you do have one more. And let's see how this goes, because it does feel like for the first time we've gone from trying to break the status quo through being disruptors. You know, before the stadium, it was all about growing your footballers' value, flogging them, buying 5 more, growing them up, selling them, buying more. And then you got the stadium, and we messed up the recruitment for several years. Now we seem to finally getting the recruitment on track. I know there's just topics around the wages. We can discuss that later, I guess. But it does feel like this is a model which is there to drive repeatable decisions that drive more hits than misses in all the major departments you need. So in recruitment, in the coaching staff we're bringing in the way we approach games, in the types of managers we're bringing in. So I do think it's a really exciting time in this new era. But I you know, like it's already been said as well, that it's not going to be a straight journey through the Atlantic to the promised land. There's going to be rough seas. There's going to be moments where we're bailing water, but I think we've got to just remain calm and steady and give this era a proper 2 or 3 years, which is a lot to ask of the fan base when they've been so patient with Conte, so patient with Mourinho, so patient with Ange, so patient with pretty much every manager that's been thrown at us that has not ended up getting us where we hoped to be. And we're asking this all to do it again. But I do believe this time it's not a let's just chuck a big name out there and try the new shiny thing. I think this is a bit more of a mature approach that I believe will work if we give it more time. So I am excited for it.
Yeah, I listen, I mean, I have to say, my first second when I watched that interview, I was excited, but then I have to be honest and say that I think Marlon and Bill to some degree, and even you, Tej, I mean, you're a very positive person in life, you know, you've sat here and all said, we have gone through this on so many occasions, you know, this is the 14th manager in 24 years, you know, so we have got this situation where every 2 years we are constantly changing. Some would argue we're hitting the reset button. Some would say this is not a reset or a rebuild, it's a rebalance. Would it just be a case on this point, Tej, that the proof is going to be in the pudding, right? I mean, the reality is, if you are coming out suggesting and saying this club should be winning the Premier, they want the club to win the Premier League and win the Champions League, and you've got the manager's tone now saying that the team are winners, we want to make them serial winners, well, then you have to show us how we are going to get there as a football club to get those players that are going to enable us to do that, Tej. Is that fair? And that's something we haven't seen with this club.
Of course it's fair. Absolutely. And again, I want to say this as well. I said this the last time I was on the show. Two truths can exist at the same time. Several truths can exist at the same time. And so I don't want anyone to think who's watching or listening to this show that any of us are anti-Frank. Of course we aren't. You know, he's an enormously respected manager. He worked wonders at Brentford. He's a manager around the world who has earned his plaudits and his credits. And I'll speak for myself here. I'm really happy to have him at Tottenham. I think we all are, but I'll let the gentlemen express those opinions for themselves. That doesn't negate the fact that we are also a little wary because, listen, we have been traumatized as a football club. We really have. I can't remember who it was yesterday. I think it was Ash saying, you know, we're a big 6 club. And then he said, you know, maybe we're a big 4 club and we should be. I think it was Ash. It was. And so we want to talk the talk, but also walk the walk. And that is beyond the remit of whichever manager is there. It does fall upon Daniel Levy and the boards to suddenly say, okay, we're not going to have a 43% wage structure. We're not going to, you know, not go and purchase a player because he's £70 million or £80 million and our record is 65 or, you know, whatever it may be. And so honestly, Tottenham community, with enormous love and respect that I always show to all of you, whether I'm on this show, whether I meet you in person, whether it's here in America or back when I'm back home in London. We all want the same thing. Love and respect to you all. Yes, we're excited about Thomas Frank. And like I said, I think he has an opportunity to work wonders with our young players. He could be the guy to really unlock this squad. However, there's no point throwing a parade right now because we have been here before. And so let's hope that this shift in PR, which I said was seismic and immediately noticeable, whether it's Vinay, one of the viewers or listeners posted a comment saying that Vinay has control over all PR and everything that goes out. He's clearly very good at it and he's just next level. No disrespect to Donna Cullen, but he's next level. And so, yes, I think what you said, Rick, is completely fair. I think what everyone has said on the panel is completely fair. Even people in the comments. Some people are saying, I'm not excited at all. Other people are saying, I'm really behind him.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to have these differing opinions. And ultimately, all of us want success for Tottenham Hotspur, but also we are wise enough, pragmatic enough to know that in order to achieve that success, there are certain fundamental structures, financial fundamental structures that must be eradicated, not even altered, eradicated, or you don't stand a chance.
Yep. Listen, I even joke, me and Jason joke all the time that I've been flip-flopping for the last few weeks, especially under Andy's reign. I said consistently on here for a very long time, Bill, coming over to you that, you know, I just didn't feel it was working under Ange for a long, long time. And I think the thing is, when we had that week in Bilbao with the parade and everything that goes on, you are emotionally in a moment in that week where everything is kind of, I would just say, up in the air. You don't know how to feel. You don't know what to feel. You've just experienced one of the best weeks of your life as a supporter, and you're kind of being pulled from pillar to post. But when I look at the Frank interview and just the terminology and language he comes out with, I do feel a lot more assured going into this season than maybe when I had my feelings. I look at, how I felt after Goodison Park with Everton. When I look back to some of the defeats of last season, Leicester games, where again, I appreciate that there's context to these games and didn't have all these players available. There was obviously, again, a decimation of injuries. But the key will come down to, as you've said, Bill, the reality is that this man is going to have to be backed in order to achieve the goals the club seem to be wanting to set. And they are very, very high goals. And it will come down to whether the club are going to change their strategy, their model that they haven't really done over, like we say, nearly a quarter of a century, Bill.
Yeah, and I think just going back to Ange really, really quickly, I think, and we've spoken a lot over the last couple of weeks, and people will keep talking about it, I'm sure, head versus heart. I think Ange is a manager who is very much, to put his heart on his sleeve. He's always about the passion, about the heart, the philosophy. I think Thomas Frank is sort of opposite of that, which is why he's nicknamed the Professor. He's a thinking man's manager. He does everything data-led. He brought about funding PhDs in Brentford and things like that. He's a very academic. He's almost like an academic manager, isn't he? Which is a polar opposite to Ange, but it might be more beneficial for us moving forward. And I think generally you can have two philosophies in football, head versus heart. You can want to, and I think we've found it difficult to find a balance over the years of using both of those things. I think Ange probably struggled a little bit to balance that. Sometimes he was maybe too passionate. We had his arguments with the fans over the last couple of years. Thomas Frank is really measured. And to be honest with you, I've been extremely critical of the club over the last couple of years. The Thomas Frank appointments is the first time where it seems to have been a really competent manager search. The last time we were out, Andrew was reportedly fifth choice. We had the Nuno drama when we hired Fonseca, and then Gattuso was rumoured, then we eventually got Nuno. Total shambles. This one seemed really competent. It seemed like the process was good, and let alone just the managers that the people involved coming out and saying that. The noise around the club seemed to be this was our man straight away, and we went out and got him. So it seems to be everything is a bit more measured, a bit more thoughtful, and a bit more meaningful. So that's a good thing. But you're completely right. We have to change our tactics in terms of the transfer window. You can't compete on all fronts unless you have a significant amount of experienced players in your playing squad that you can rely on for the first team. It's fallen apart for us, multiple times over the last few years. Clubs like Newcastle have struggled with it. Clubs like Aston Villa struggled with it last year. It's really difficult to fire on all cylinders unless you have a playing squad that costs a considerable amount of money. And, generally speaking, you have quite a hefty wage bill. We have a really small wage bill comparatively with what we earn. And I think we need to see that increase. So all the noise is coming out talking about competing on all four fronts. And that needs to be backed up now by significant transfer spend, I would suggest.
Do you think, Miles, coming over to you, that we're going to know very, very quickly if there's a change at the club when that window slams shut on the 1st of September? Is that where you'll already have a knowing feeling from then, even already, if there's been a real change at this football club, depending on who comes through the door and the nature of those calibre of players Tottenham will sign?
Oh, of course, you'll know that from that day, and I think a lot of us will go, okay, when we start rating the window out of 10 like we normally do, as football fans, that's what we do. But if we're looking at it going, well, was this any better than last year's window? And we're still going off these young, players that are not proven. We're still lacking in certain positions that we were, lacking in last season. Then we're all going to know straight away that actually it's all smoke. It's all smoke. It's again because of new managers come in and they kind of are blaming Ange for what happened last year. And that's how you have to look at it. If they keep most of these players, they are blaming the manager for most of the problems. And actually, when you look at it in as the bigger picture, it was a bit of both. There was manager issues, but there was player issues as well with consistency. And I think if we are not, especially now being back in the Champions League, I'm sorry, even with a better manager, even if it is Frank, that squad cannot go into next year's Champions League and will be able to perform against Paris Saint-Germain in that Super Cup. They will get annihilated. And we have to be completely honest. So I'm looking at it going, leaving that the guys have produced their interview, but as soon as July 1st, I'm going to say July 1st, because the reason why I'm using July 1st, that's when most of the contracts are up and we'll know what situation other clubs are in. That is when the serious business needs to start happening. And I get that selling someone like Son needs to, and like I said before, I did tell everyone he can't be sold until after the South Korean tour's done. So they've really got to go out and actually show us fans that they're not just saying words, they are producing. They could clearly see there was a problem on the pitch, and actually Frank is getting the autonomy to go out and get players. Because I'm sorry, I'm going to say this: putting Ben Davis back in our squad and re-signing a new contract does not show me you have the ambition to go win the Champions League and the Premier League in the next year or so. So, and let's go with Tell as well. Tell, Frank wasn't here. They can sit there and say he was signed, but he was obviously signed by the club, and that's why they've kept him on, because they realise there's probably potential that Frank can work with at the moment. So I need to see some clear identity over the next few weeks, a few months, and clearly see this club pushing forward. But let's see. I'm not putting a downer on it. I'm just looking at going, I just wish I never heard from Daniel Levy yesterday, because I was actually so happy for Frank to be employed, because I think you asked me a few weeks back before Frank came in who would be my manager, and I said Thomas Frank.
You said Thomas Frank. Yeah,
I said Thomas Frank. So I'm all happy that he's here.
So just to be clear, before I move to Jim, are you saying, Miles, for you, that interview that Daniel Levy and Vinay Venkateshwar have done, that's upset you more?
That's upset me more than the whole ending.
But just be clear, but not Vinay. This is not Daniel,
Vinay.
is it?
This is on Daniel, and I blame Vinay, because Vinay clearly can see he's trying to push Daniel on towards us. You can clearly see, because even today with Thomas Frank at the beginning, he mentions Daniel. He mentions Daniel first.
Yeah, he was really working hard to humanize him, wasn't he? And just
trying
to show him
so hard.
One of the guys and talking about football, and nothing meant more to me than that night. Yeah, man, I saw all of that.
And then Vinay tried to do exactly the same thing. They wanted to show Daniel in this light, and I'm like, I've seen. Unfortunately, 2 years ago, I was sitting here, not here personally, but I was sitting here, and I was going. People were telling me that Ange's the man. It's all changed at Tottenham, and exactly what Jim was saying in his statement of obviously everything's changing and whatnot. I heard the same thing 2 years ago when Ange came in, and everyone told me then. So you can see why now I'm looking at going. I'm not pushing myself as forward as everyone else might want to be at the moment. And I clearly see why, because Ange can coach. Ange is a very, very good coach. But I'm worried that he's going to get Tottenham as most other coaches do. And that's my biggest worry. And until that head's gone, that Daniel Levy plaster is until I see an actual change this summer, and I mean, it has to be a massive change this summer on the players that we are going to bring in. Then I'll probably start to ease up and go, actually, they're proving exactly what they've just said.
Yeah, and I will just say, Marlon, you did sound here 2 weeks ago before we even had a manager. You said Thomas Frank was your choice. It was your pick. So, like I say, and a lot of people are with you on that. There will be some out there that, words are one thing, actions are to back them up. Jim, I just want to close with you on one point before we do discuss the fixtures. Super Chic says here, Rick, can you ask the panel if us winning this trophy excels us to a different level? I mean, it's quite interesting that Frank did mention the fact, Jim, this team are winners and he wants to turn them into serial winners. How different will that be, Jim, for a manager that, with all due respect, as I mentioned, we've had 14 in the last 24 years. You'd probably say, I mean, sacking one day Ramos and bringing Harry Redknapp in, he had some winners at the time. But how different is it, the fact that a manager is coming in and these players are European winners? They've got that trophy monkey off their back. There's not that pressure, that weight that is hanging around the football club for a trophy. Does that make the manager's life easier? Does that mean the players are more hungry? How do you see that point for you in terms of that squad and the fact they are winners now and he wants to make them serial winners?
Well, the answer is it's going to be harder in some ways and easier in others, because they will be able to forecast Champions League revenue now, which you wouldn't have had without winning that trophy, which will in turn, hopefully, and I will be in a purple and gold Morris dancer outfit outside Hotspur Way. If this doesn't happen, hopefully there will be an increase in the, transfer spend as a result of that Champions League football, because we want to see what we have a situation of is we've seen Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest aggressively spend with the risk that if they don't get Champions League, they'd have to wind down their spending. So they're over their 70% squad ratio of revenue versus transfers and wages, right, which is the new FFP cap model. We've got room in there to go in the other direction and go up. And I know, some will say, we've done the numbers before, Spurs don't have hundreds and hundreds of millions spare to go, but they've got enough to do more than what they've done last year. And they've got enough to get a few very good senior players into that squad and make that the priority of fixing those major issues that I believe set whoever was a manager last time round up for failure going into that final season. So there are challenges, though, that it brings as well, because the Europa League is a brilliant win. It's not an easy cup to win, but we were the best team in it. And that competition isn't there for us to play in this time. We're in the tier 1 competition. So Frank's going to have a harder European, tie every week than he would have had if he had been in a year sooner. But he does have the better days of the week, which help juggle the league. When you're playing in the Champions League, you do get a day's extra rest for your Premier League games. So that will help. But it definitely will also help us attract slightly better players because you've got that European football as well to offer. You'll have more money. So, of course, I think it definitely helps. And the big underappreciated thing, and I think whether you think Ange was right or wrong is kind of irrelevant. I think, Ricky, you kind of almost called yourself out there earlier saying, you flip-flopped and changed. But anyone saying they were completely certain through that whole journey is probably not telling the truth. There will be some exceptions, and someone in the comments will probably say, I believe the whole way through. And those who followed me before, I stuck with him the whole way through.
I know,
but my confidence meter was swinging, right? It's not like you'd be disingenuous to say, no, I'm always 100% in. That's just being dogmatic. It's being obstinate. Yeah. You're sticking to a principle. There's got to be someone do some research on this in football, but it's the one thing that is the least open-minded topic people can have is on football. That they get an opinion and they just stick to it. And I think it's fine if you switched sides throughout that because there was so much uncertainty throughout that whole process. I don't have any beef with anyone who told me through the whole thing that I'm a blithering idiot for saying that we should stick with Ange. But it worked out. And the same people who said we should have got rid are celebrating with me, saying, who cares? Ended up working out on this front. Yeah. But you have to agree, Jim, surely we need someone who can manage in the league now as well. And all and I agree. Yeah. There is... there's not just two truths. I know you said there's several truths going on right now. We don't need to be too argumentative about it. Bob. So I think he set up well. But the key is he absolutely has to get those players in. But it's tough, Marlon, I think, because we'll make our assessment end of this transfer window and we'll do the ratings, like you said.
Yep.
But I mean, West Ham won the transfer window last season and they nearly got relegated. We won the transfer window when we sold Bale and bought all these players and had a terrible season. So I think have the window, and then I think in 6 to 9 months, then it's the kind of, was he sold a bad deal here? Because Spurs have invested all this in data. They will know, and they should know, if that squad is deep enough for someone to compete on multiple fronts.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. Look, we are going to go for our first break of this show for our listeners that are on audio. I want to say, look, up on behalf of us all here, we wish Thomas Frank the very, very best of luck because as Tottenham fans, we all know, we know what he's working with because we've seen the same people had to work under many, many limitations and find it very, very hard. Some of the best have come here and have not managed to get over the line. So, look, we do wish Thomas Frank the very, very best. We are going to go for that first break of the show. When we come back, we'll be discussing the fixture reveal for the 25-26 season, our 8th season here on Last Word on Spurs. Forgive me if I'm losing hair. Forgive me if I'm looking older, because I definitely am. Forgive me if we're going for it all again. Listen, we are going to go for that break. In this break, we're going to see Thomas Frank on that training ground and give us a glimpse of what is to come. We'll be back after this very, very short break. Let's hear and see Thomas Frank in action on that training ground.
Yes! Good. I like it, Frank. Brilliant. Yes. Rick! That's fine. A little bit higher, me. A little bit higher. So on the outside. You need a bounce. Yes. Okay. Time. Yes. Brilliant, Miles, Brian. Now we're there. Okay, let's go. Out, Victor. Yes. Just straight up. Better! Now we play a little bit more on the outside. And here where you went down there, where Chris, he just needs to go higher, okay? So we fill in, really good. So get those positions. So make sure, for example, the outside in the back three, whoever that is, make sure we are high enough so we can take the ball forward. Then we'll have a back four who's defending. So if we make the breakthrough, we can attack 6 versus 5. If we lose it, we defend 4 versus 5. Love it, Wes! Play! Frankie, perfect position for the bounce, okay? Really, really good.
Well, there you go. A glimpse into what we may see from Thomas Frank on the training ground. Guys, firstly, thank you so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. Over 5,500 of you that are watching the show live. Thank you for sticking by us, for sticking with us during this special edition where we've assembled. We've avenged. The Avengers has assembled. The Avengers have assembled. Forgive me. I am definitely losing my mind. We're joined by the wonderful TJ Ramini back on the screen. Although I said to TJ, we're managing him carefully. We're going to put him back on the Sun Lounger and bring him on and bring him off at times during this summer. Billie T's back. Bill has been a massive part of Last One on Spurs over this last couple of years. Of course, change for Spurs member. I'm sure Bill will agree. It'll be interesting how this will play out in these next few months. I don't know if you want to have a quick comment on that from your perspective as a change for Spurs member, if you're just going to keep an eye as to how things go and judge the mood in terms of everything with regards to Tottenham.
Yeah, that's it, man. We just, same as everyone else, we just want our club to be doing well, club to be proud of. Positive noises coming out of the club. Let's see what happens in reality. And, we just want our football club to be doing all the things that, they've just spoken about doing. So let's hope that happens. We'll certainly be watching. And again, thank you for the huge support that we got last year, both on the show and in real life. It was a huge, and I think it's hopefully showing people that, fans have an appetite to want their football club to do well. And the parade that we all got showed how much of a massive football club we are. Now let's go and act like a massive football club in summer and act like a massive football club next season and win some more trophies.
Amen. We're also joined by a wonderful Marlon at the Spurs Kings. Miles, I have to remember to ask you this because we spoke about it earlier today. There's a certain award ceremony coming up. Do you want to quickly tell everyone about this award ceremony that's happening for the Spurs community?
Yeah, so I'm doing a Spurs Tottenham Content Award, so to appreciate everybody in the Spurs community. But please make sure you get your votes in. And if you're a big Last Word on Spurs fan, please make sure you're voting for Last Word on Spurs. And also Jim as well's in there, so make sure you're voting for Oh So Spurs as well. I think it finishes next Thursday, the voting, and then the show will be on July the 6th to hand out the awards. So please tune in.
More trophies. Can't believe it. More trophies on Soap. What can we go wrong with? Jim from Oh So Spurs. Jim, thank you so much. Bless you. Like I say, you've been with me the last couple of weeks. Fun and games, Jim. It's been fun games, right? You enjoyed it so far?
Yeah, absolutely loved it. It's been a good marathon, Ricky. Yeah,
it has been, hasn't it? I tell you what a marathon got to come. Listen,
Rick, would you say that you always win an award in your 8th season?
I hope so, Bill. I bloody hope so. God, I've been waiting so long for a trophy. We could have about 3 or 4 in the next couple of months. I don't know what to do with myself. Are we having a parade? Another parade? Let's have a parade. That week was incredible. Right, listen, we're going to turn our attention to the fixtures that have been released for the 25-26 season. Like I said, guys, keep liking, keep subscribing to the show. Share this out to a worldwide Spurs audience. Those fixtures, of course, dropped at 9 a.m. on what it was Wednesday, the 18th of June. We know for Tottenham, they will open up against Burnley at home on the 16th of August. That date is locked in. That will not change. It is not televised in the UK. Home to promoted Burnley, as I mentioned. And again, just a reminder on that point, we do play the UEFA Super Cup versus PSG 3 days before the Premier League opener at home to Burnley. A really important point to make on that. And quite interestingly, we do have Man City, the second game in. Could be worth noting they might be suffering from a bit of a Club World Cup hangover. We've got one top 5 side in the opening 11 games. Some may say it's a favourable start for Thomas Frank, but when you go through the fixtures that we'll come on to, we know we've got some tricky challenges in there. I mean, November being one. November just being one, if anyone is interested or knows about November. We start off, we have that, again, was it 3-6-9? We have this, again, 10th game against Chelsea on November the 1st. Yes, we're doing Chelsea again on match week 10. I mean, we could be, again, top of the league after 10 games, absolutely flying, and Chelsea coming to town at home. We've then got Man United, Arsenal and Fulham in the month of November. I think that's why that's quite key for those that aren't aware in terms of the way those fixtures are dropping. It's by the nature of kind of what is around that when it comes to Champions League and Carabao Cup participation. So I will bring that into the show about how that may affect us. But look, overall, the key dates you'd say for your diary, Spurs will face Arsenal, and that's currently scheduled at the moment for the 22nd of November in the first London derby of the 25-26 season. And Bill made that point, so important that this time around under Thomas Frank, we start winning some of these London derbies. We've got the Chelsea dates in there. The first, obviously, is that home leg on the 1st of November, away on the 17th of May, 2026. West Ham-wise, we face West Ham away firstly, 30th of September, 2025, and then the home reverse tie on the 17th of January, 2026. And Brentford, of course, Thomas Frank's old stomping ground, should I say. We go there first. We got them at home on the 6th of December, and then we're away right near that Christmas period. The 30th of December, we travel up to the G-Tech. But look, let's get initial feelings on it. We'll come forward to it if we start with you, Bill. Initial feelings for you on the opening start to the season, what you've made of those fixtures and how they've dropped for you.
And so I think a really important thing, I remember listening to the excellent Mike last week from a Brentford fan, and he spoke about how Thomas Frank typically starts quite slowly as clubs, and I think he lost his first 8 out of his first 10 Brentford games, and possibly the same at Bromby as well, I think he was saying.
Didn't win at 10 at Bromby. Not that we're doing it down.
I don't think he could have got a much easier start, to be honest, as Tottenham manager. I think it's a really favourable opening fixture list, which I think is really, really good. He could hit the ground running like Ange did and then build from there. Because, as a fan base, particularly after making such a big decision of sacking Ange, if we'd have lost a couple of first games, it might have got a little bit tricky. So I think he'll be delighted with the opening run of fixtures, and I think it's a really good chance to build a platform for the rest of the season. I think a lot of what comes into it is the games that are after the Champions League games. I know a friend of the show, Ali Gold, did a brilliant breakdown of that. I think that will come into it a lot. We, as Ali Gold said in his tweet today, we do need a significant more players in our playing squad to be able to cope with that. That will come into it. But I think overall, he's got to be pretty happy with that start to the season. Just Man City away is the really, really tough fixture until almost the end of October. So it's a really good chance to build a really strong platform.
Yeah, I mean, Miles, just to come over to pick up on those fixtures Bill's spoken about the games following Champions League fixtures. I mean, God, these are going to be tough. Brighton away, never an easy ground for us. Leeds United away, Ellen Road is never easy. Everton away, Man United at home, Fulham at home, Forest away, Burnley away, Man City home. I mean, they don't appear easy on paper, let alone when I even talk about and say them. What's your gauge on those, Miles, in terms of the timing of those games will drop after Champions League fixtures?
To be fair, it just depends on the squad that we have. If we're on form, you look at some of them fixtures, as long as they're not like Manchester City at home is probably, the one towards the end is a perfect fixture for us. Leeds and Brighton, depending on what where we're at and where we're at as a football team. Actually, the fixtures, and you look at the timing of them, is actually, you look at it a few years ago. If this was Poch, these fixtures are favourable. In the sense of where teams are and how it's all coming along. And even when you look at November, and it's got, I think we've got Chelsea, United, and Arsenal. Both of those are at home. Yeah. So even when it's coming, when we've got 3 hard teams in a row, 2 of them are going to be at home. I know we've got United's number a little bit, but this is not Angela anymore. This is Thomas Frank. But if we look at it, if we get a good enough squad and Thomas is starting to get his team and we're starting to play well, you look at that fixture, and especially look two fixtures that I write off. I kind of go, there's a 36 game season. Liverpool away, I don't expect nothing. That's not a Thomas Frank thing. That's a Tottenham thing. No. And
that is important. I say that is not a Thomas Frank thing, because if you listen to Thomas Frank on podcasts and interviews, I'm sort of point my pen at you, Miles. I'm not pointing my pen at you like that. But what I am trying to make a point is that he says he goes to all those big games and believes he is going to get a result. And if they don't get a result, he's bloody disappointed.
And how great is that the Chelsea away game, is like the 37th game of the season.
I know. We won the league by then. It's wrapped up.
It's all wrapped up. So I'm looking at it going, and just going back to your Champions League point, I think any Premier League fixtures these days is difficult. Southampton was probably the only easiest fixture last season for any team. And even us, it was the easiest fixture. Ipswich was tough at home for us. And can't remember who else got relegated now. But they were tough fixtures for us last year. But if we look at it, if we're going to ask for any favourable fixtures, as long as they're not big games where they're against the top, what we call the so-called top 6, I think we have to look at it and go, if Spurs have to go out there and just perform, and as long as they can go and perform after this Champions League, I'm not sitting here going to say I'm worried. But again, until the 1st of September rolls around, I'll tell you where I'm at.
And I think we have to. Sorry to jump in. I think we have to remember as well. We're scarred as Tottenham fans because traditionally we haven't been able to compete on all fronts, and often struggled with that concept. But this is a manager and a team of managers and a setup that will look at this academically. They will put every single. He always talks about fine margins and all this kind of stuff. These guys will approach this with a fine-tooth comb and be able to try to maximize playing 2 games a week, and they will look at it academically. And Ange himself admitted that he made mistakes last season. We went too strong at the beginning of the season. He did not handle the pressure well of playing multiple games in a week. Thomas Frank will be the complete opposite of that, I believe, and I think he'll really come at it in a scientific sense and data-led, and hopefully it will come out the best for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Just bringing you in, Jim, on those fixtures before I go to TJ on them. When we look at them, we know when I look at, for example, the month of September, we know we've got a trip to Brighton. Then we've got back-to-back away games, all that home clash with Wolves, never an easy game. October, you touched upon it, brings of course that trip to Ellen Road, and noisy Ellen Road it will be. Leeds back in the Premier League, then welcome Aston Villa after the international break, then travelling to Everton. And then I know a lot of people are kind of focused on this November. I mean, Miles has kind of taken confidence by the fact we've got Chelsea and United at home. But that does feel, when you look at the fixtures and you kind of intrinsically zone out and you zoom back in, November does look like a very key month because, again, when you factor into it the Champions League involvement and the potential cup involvement, I'm not going to try and serialise and headline and clickbait to say it always make or break from the month of November, but it feels like a big month when you look at what we've got to come. Is that fair, Jim?
It is. I would say, though, with fixtures in the Premier League, you can't get away with much rotation anyway in the Premier League if you want to do well in the Premier League. You've got to play 9 of your best available 11 players most games and rotate a couple. And the fixtures will always look hard if you lack confidence in your own side. And I think I looked back last season, I thought, why are the fixtures so hard? Why is every game so hard on paper? And then on reflection, I was thinking, it's because I don't trust us to win anything in the league anymore. So the fixtures naturally look really difficult. But for City, if you imagine being a prime Liverpool fan, last season, they'd be looking at the fixtures going, this is easy. There's maybe 1 game on there I don't think we're going to win. Yeah. So it's all relative to how good and confident you are in your team's ability to do well. Yeah, I do look at that, and I did think last year there was a bit of unfortunate in the sense that we couldn't seem to get just 2 easy home games together in a row. And there is a bit of the thing around momentum, and you do need a bit of that, I think. Yep. But this season, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking that's a pretty good fixture schedule. It's just there's no bit you're like, oh my word, the month of death, or that's the month of glory. It's just, it feels like if you're consistently on the right path, you will be all right. And like you're going to touch on later, Ricky, when you're playing the big 6 clubs, the ones in Europe, not big, the other clubs, 6 clubs in Europe, they are consciously tied up to play you when you're playing in Europe as well. Yeah. So if you're not in Europe, those clubs always go, our start is impossible. It's so hard. It's not really. It's just that they're trying to get your games with those clubs that are in Europe out the way before the European fixtures come up. Yeah. So I think we can overanalyze it a little bit. I think it's the right time to play Arsenal. I don't want to play them in the opening 2 or 3 games because I find the first 5-6 games you're kind of like, it's either a period of mass panic or mass adulation, but it's actually a time of uncertainty that you shouldn't get too wound up about. But once you get to about game 5, 6, 7 in November, December, is probably the period. Your team just gets there, your first team, like, great, got some form, got some rhythm, we know who the team is. Then the fixture madness hits and injuries start hitting, and then your squad's tested. Yeah. And then comes the doldrums of December, which can be so fun, but it can also be a really testing time if you're playing in Europe.
The thing, I want to bring Bill back in there because you turned around there and said, Jim, there's not a month of death, and then Bill suddenly put his hand up. So Bill, can anything?
This is talking. This is if we're firing on all fronts. Can I read you the potential February? Now, this is only considering the fact that we'll be firing on all fronts. So on the 28th of January, we'd have Champions League match day 8. 3 days later, we then have Man City. 2 days after that, we'd have a Carabao Cup semi-final second leg if we're in it, obviously. 5 days after that, we'd have Man United. 4 days after that, we'd have Newcastle. 3 days after that would be the FA Cup 4th round. 3 days after that would be a Champions League knockout phase playoff if we're there. 4 days after that would be Arsenal, and then 3 days after that would be a Champions League knockout phase playoff second leg. If we make it to February, that could be the month of death. But let's hope. To be honest, I want a month of death. I want to be in all these competitions and fighting for them. So, as fans, we want to be facing death, right? That's what we live for.
My only worry is as we were reading that stuff out, it looked like Tej was getting further and further and further away from his screen there. Yeah. He just was, I think Tej was going to blend into his photos on the photo frame on the wall then by the end of when you were going through February.
At the end of the day, though, this is what a club that is supposed to be firing on all fronts. This is what you do. This is what happens to the big clubs, right? So.
Yeah. I mean, what's your takeaways, Tej, for you? Because to try and give everybody a good omen, if it is a good omen, don't worry about what the final result was. That apparently we did have Everton at home in the last game of 2019, and we did reach a Champions League final. If I try and cast your mind back, so. Is that a good omen, a bad omen? I mean, what do you make of it, Tej? What do you make of the opening fixture?
Let's go with good omen. Let's be glass half full, people. And Bill just took the words out of my mouth. I mean, listen, if there is going to be a month of death, it's a month of death because we're all still firing in every competition and we're looking to win trophies, which, of course, we've just heard is apparently the desire of the owners and the new CEO of this football club, is that we want to be competing on multiple platforms and competing for the biggest honors in the sport. And so again, we're a big club, so this is, every other big club podcast are saying the same thing. Oh my goodness, what's that month going to look like? When
Tej, are you sure they're saying the same thing as what we're saying here? Are you sure they are?
I mean, certainly to the new PR team, they did it very well, and it was beautifully edited, and all the filters were just right. Wasn't that music sensational? And I mean, they got Spielberg in to film that interview. It was beautiful. But again, I think that it's very important that the mentality of the football club changes in a holistic fashion, including us. I spoke with a great deal of pride the last season, that the last few episodes that I was on the show last season, at the influence that this podcast and other really influential, Tottenham personalities throughout social media on the internet, we wield a lot of power, Tottenham fans. And I think that that's really important to understand, is the level of agency that we as fans have. And so the more we galvanize and unify our desires and our motivations of what we want this club to achieve, they hear it and they're listening. And I would like to believe that the club also wants to achieve what we want to achieve. And so bring on the fixtures. I want teams to fear us. You know how Marlon said, we're going to Liverpool then and I never expect anything then. I hope that there are other clubs that go, we're going to Tottenham and I never expect anything there. With my hand on my heart, and I'm sorry to say, I don't think there's probably many clubs that would go, we never get anything at Tottenham, because anyone can get anything at Tottenham. And so
certainly last season, too.
We showed that. So, I love this idea of starting with something, and also starting with something sort of unequivocal and isn't subject to any kind of subjectivity or duplicity. That let's start with home. Let's make this a place that when teams come to Tottenham Hotspur, they are quaking in their boots. The whole bus is rumbling as it pulls into the stadium because they are so nervous at what is going to befall them when they step onto that hallowed grass. And not only from the players, but from the fans. I remember that wonderful time that we absolutely destroyed Arsenal, both in the terraces and on the pitch. And even Gary Neville, who never has, Gary Neville is a particularly cantankerous individual and seems to, draw pleasure from few things in life. But he was saying, we absolutely destroyed them that day.
Yeah,
and so let's do that. Let's make it somewhere where people feel fearful to come to Tottenham Hotspur. I do think we need a bit more dog about us. And so, and with regards to these games and this new manager, thank you, Rain. Rain Man, marvelous, wonderful film. I think that it's also really important to understand that the brand of football that Thomas Frank is known for, and I know that he's famously mercurial and nebulous and can change in a moment, which is very important. But also his brand of football is not antithetical to Ange. When Ange came in and we were used to playing Conte, which was sit around and just kind of see what happened, what he wanted to do was a 180 of that. And so what Frank, in my opinion, isn't a 180 away from what Ange was trying to do. It is a tweak.
Rebalancing.
Yeah, it's a little tweak and a little adjustment. So,
Yeah,
and of course, the chaps are right that Thomas Frank typically starts slowly, but because of the brand of football that I believe he's going to play with Tottenham and at Tottenham, and also the quality of player that he has, I actually agree with Billy. I think he'll start pretty well. So I'm looking forward to it, man. We're a big club. Let's act, behave, and think like a big club.
Yeah, I mean, Miles, you was on here a lot last season for those home defeats. I'm not taking you back there, I promise you I'm not. But how important is that, like Frank has said, that we should try and turn that ground into a fortress? Because, again, a lot of the comments that are on the show live coming in, King Huddle, bless him, a regular viewer and listener, says here, home was once a fortress. Won 17, drew 2, lost 0. Can we get back to making that home a fortress? Because we've seen, go to last season, even in Europe, those latter stages, the Border Glimp night, how special that was, and the way the fans really got behind the team. And Bill spoke about already Vinay's, introduction to the club with the fact of the scarves and what he did there and that kind of unique, nice touch that was there really from day one of him coming on board. Can that really, really help try and build those foundations that Frank is talking about in terms of trying to set the place up to be a fortress again?
Yeah, but it's going to take time. What everyone has to remember, like, this is still a new home for us. It's not like many teams have moved into a new home and they've struggled to make it a fortress, struggled at home and things like that. I don't want to talk about them not down the road, but they've only recently in the last couple of years really made it somewhere where teams don't want to play. We're going through the same bit. West Ham are probably going through the same with their stadium. This just happens when teams move in. Etihad used to be the same before they became rich and everything else. Unfortunately, this is just, it's going to take some steps to make this stadium into a fortress. But if we can fill it with a team where the fans can get behind, so you say when we have the big games like Bodo Glimt and we have other, when Arsenal first came to the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, how the fans were on board, that's how you get the atmosphere. And just hopefully Frank will start, when we start seeing some of those performances. Let's go back to Liverpool when the whole VAR controversial, the stadium was amazing that day. It was electric. So it can happen. It just needs the team to be performing at the same time and the fans and everyone to be on the same boat. And then that fortress of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium will become a thing. But at the present moment, it's not something I'm completely worried about. What I just want to see for next season, and I know everyone will always talk about the 22 defeats. We just didn't win enough games last year.
No,
the Premier League table doesn't matter if you've got 22 league defeats. It matters about how many wins you've got, and that is how the Premier League table is. Like it will be in order majority of the time on how many wins you got. Wins home and away. Let's just make sure we can get into not 11. I think what we won last year. Let's get into the 20s, the 18s. That's where we just need to get to, and then we'll suddenly start seeing a shift.
Yeah, I think it's really important, Jim, coming over to you on this point. We spoke about it earlier, and you're bringing a loop round to it, is the fact of having that championing involvement, trying to compete, as Bill said, on all four fronts. The reality is last season, we had 60 matches in the end because of the participation in the latter stages of the Carabao Cup, the latter stages of, obviously, the Europa League. Frank, let's be honest about it. We've all said on this show that, and as Bill has said, he is a bit of a slow starter. I think it's a bit of a different situation now with regards to imagine a club like Tottenham in comparison to where he had to start with Brentford and Bromby. Let's be honest about it. But he's never managed this amount of games before. How big a challenge, Jim, do you think that's going to be, having a season that could once again be a 60, 65 game season, and at the start of it is a UEFA Super Cup to even begin, and you've got 3 days to prepare for that before you've got Burnley at the opening day of the Premier League season?
Yeah, this is where the importance of his staff comes in. And I think that's why he's brought in people he trusts, and he's going to get a bigger budget for his staff room than he would have had at Brentford. And he will certainly need it, because he had a lot more time to prepare for games at Brentford. And when you have got more time to be on the training pitch, watching videos, that obviously gives you an advantage versus the other team that you're coming in. Now he's on the side where it's in a disadvantageous position when you're playing in Europe. But what we need to do as a club, and I'm sure we will have, and I really hope we have, is we've given him a team large enough that they're always planning 2 games ahead of where they are. So he's always looking at it as those football manager, what fantasy Premier League addicts do, where they've got all their fixtures planned out, their captains planned 3 games in. That's why I can't play those games anymore, because it just got so intense to even remotely play. But that's what it must be like behind the scenes playing for games at Spurs anymore. It's not just right. Whew, Chelsea are out of the way. What's next again? They'll know all these things, and they'll be planning and managing players based on percentages and how they're going to get around it. I would say, though, it's difficult to always compare year after year. What's a good points tally? What's a good number of wins and all those kind of things? Because the variables we can't control is how good other teams are at that time. And if Spurs go and address their 3 major issues in their squad, well, the teams behind us might all address their 2 or 3 major issues in their squad. So everyone's leaping forward at the same rate. You've got to kind of leverage the fact you are a club the size of Spurs to make one extra improvement than they can do every season until you accumulate an advantage so big that you are the best team in the league. And look, Bournemouth, as an example, with 12,000-seater stadium, are now a club that are able to buy a striker off a massive club like Porto for 40 million quid, their best player.
That's mental.
That's our competition. There's maybe now 1 or 2 clubs you go, yeah, we've got an 80% chance of beating them. The rest, it's really like, yeah, we've got a 60%. You know, it's really changed significantly.
Yes,
Didn't we get to November last year, end of November, and I read that only 3 clubs had won 2 games on the bounce. There was some crazy stat like that. That's how hard it is.
Yeah.
But the advantage of that is if the gap is shrunk between teams. So if you only need that marginal gain can be is all what you need now to limp ahead, and you can need lower points totals to win the league than you did before. So it's all about that depth. We've got of that 25-man squad, you've got to have 22 players in there. You say, I can trust them to play in a Premier League match.
Yeah, and it all goes back to this point, Bill, to finish with you on this topic before we do quickly move on for the final break of the show. Bill, it goes back to what you have said consistently really throughout this show and through multiple shows on Last Word on Spurs. It is about putting together a squad that can ultimately compete on all 4 fronts if you're going to try and achieve success once again, right? That is what it all comes down to. When you look at the squad and the fixtures that we've got to come, there's going to need to be significant improvement, right?
Yeah, and the way that you do that is by having, flexible options in each position, having a first 11 that can be rotated. Last year, you could probably say we didn't get the rotation right. Ultimately, it ended up in us winning a trophy. So, that is, a great indicator, but the league form suffered horrifically. So it's about addressing that balance, and that could be, we do have a manager that's going to improve players now, so that could be a mixture of youngsters in there, but I think we can all agree that we probably need to add some more experience too. Even Ange in his last few days was talking about that. So, I hope we don't just supplement that with, a lot of academy players that can sort of count as the second team. I don't think that'll be enough to compete in the Premier League and the Champions League. So I hope we do add a significant number of experienced quality players to our squad. Because that is really the only way that's ever worked out. No one has ever won the league and the Champions League by just playing youth players, unless you have an academy like Barcelona. So that's what I hope that we do.
100%. Look, we're going to squeeze in that final break of the show for our listeners and audio. A reminder for you out there that we are delighted on Last One Spurs to have teamed up with Nord once again, but for their brand new product that they're running across the summer, their Saily eSIM data, which is brilliant for international travel for a lot of our fans that are going to be going potentially to that Super Cup final, for those that are going to be traveling around the world, of course, for a lot of our Champions League games that are going to be coming next season. This is a brilliant tool that will enable you to save a huge amount of money when it comes to international travel and eSIM. So it means when you do go into different countries, you are not incurring a crazy amount of charges when it comes to using data abroad. So look, we're running this promotion right now on Last Word on Spurs. If you use that code LWS at checkout, you can get 15% off your first purchase. For those that watch the show on YouTube, you can simply navigate to the QR code that will take you straight through to get that 15% off. And for our listeners on audio, if you check out the details in our product episode description box, you can find it there. Right. Transfer window.
I'm absolutely going to get that, because when I was home for Christmas, my phone bill was over $400. So I'm absolutely going to get that. Real talk. Sorry, Rick, carry on.
No, thank you. One signed up already. Who says I can't do this right? Who says I can't do it right? Brilliant. Right. Transfer update. Transfer window is open. Yes, we are in the middle of a transfer window, and constantly in the window, we're hearing things, we're seeing things going on. But with regards to Spurs at the moment, we've discussed this about Thomas Frank coming in. There is a lot that he's going to have to deal with coming through the door very, very early on. And let's discuss very quickly some of the things that he is going to have to deal with, because we have had an update in regards to Heung-Min Son's future, and this comes from Fabrizio Romano, friend of the show. Fabrizio has said there's a strong interest in Heung-Min Son from clubs in Saudi Arabia who have a good relationship with his agent. The changing head coach at Tottenham could see the South Korean change his mind over his future. He was almost certain to stay if Ange Postecoglou continued as head coach. Nothing has been decided as of yet. We've also had an update on Heung-Min Son's colleague, vice-captain Christian Romero, who, of course, for those that may have forgot or been under a rock, Romero decided to release his statement of sadness for Ange's departure only 56 minutes after the appointment of Thomas Frank. Many might have seen that as being disrespectful. Some would have maybe not been too concerned about his words because it may have been true what they thought of the board and his statement itself around the fact of always existing those problems and the fact they've always had to come through those issues. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed it's going to be very difficult to prize Christian Romero away from Tottenham this summer. Daniel Levy wants to keep the player at the club, and Thomas Frank sees the player as a crucial part of the squad, both technically and in terms of leadership. So those are the two key, I'd say, players at the moment that are on the radar. We've also heard a lot of reports. We're going to quickly wrap up over the last 24 hours that we understand Tottenham, despite reports coming out from Italy, are not looking to sell Granero Rocario and are not looking to in any way bring in another goalkeeper at this stage. Tottenham have had links, however, and are looking to make a strong push for Monaco right back Vanderson. Tottenham are reportedly in the best position to sign him. He has been on Tottenham's radar before. We've also heard that Tottenham are preparing to make a 50 million bid for West Ham's Mohamed Kudus. Important to know that he has got an 85 million release clause, so worth bearing that in mind. Tottenham are reportedly one of two clubs with the most interest in Arnold Kalimuendo. Rennes want more than 30 million to sell the striker. It has also been reported Tottenham are amongst the clubs that, like the Palmeiras defensive midfielder Richard Ríos, the Brazilian side, don't need to sell the player. Therefore, it would take an offer of at least 21 million euros for them to release the player to join another club should they wish to do so. We understand Sheffield United are considering a double swoop for Alfie Devine, Ashley Phillips, while despite signing a new contract less than only 3 months ago, Lucas Bergvall, there are big clubs willing to pay upwards of 60 million for the Tottenham midfielder, but Spurs are not interested in any deal whatsoever, and the player has absolutely zero interest in leaving Spurs right now. Let's hope that does continue. Very quickly on this, boys, we can touch upon it. Let's come to you, Tej. I suppose the key ones being at the moment, Romero, Heung-Min Son, probably one of the first things that Thomas Frank will go into in the next few weeks and have to look at, analyse in terms of what to do next. What, in your opinion, should he do on both those players if you're Thomas Frank?
I mean, listen, the Sonny debate has validity on both sides. You know, I'll say it again. I've said it 500 times on this show. I love Sonny to pieces, my favourite Tottenham player. Those who know and saw me at the final, I had my Sonny shirt. I took it out of the plastic wrapping that night because I wanted to wear a Tottenham shirt with his name on the back when we lifted a trophy, and we did. So, however, I do understand that this is a business before sentiment. And so if an enormous bid came in for Sonny, I would wish him all the very best and, you know, bid him adieu. If he stayed, wonderful. Kind of the same thing with Romero. I mean, obviously, Romero isn't coming to the end of his career. He's in the prime of his career, if anything. I think for a manager like Thomas Frank, having an absolutely pivotal rock of a centre-back like Christian Romero would be fundamental in both senses of the word. And so this is always a thing for Tottenham. It's keeping your best players and then recruiting, you know, reinforcements. For me, I was going to save this to the end of the show, but I might as well say it now. We've spoken probably for the last hour and a half and pontificated and theorized about, oh, we want to be competitive and PR and spin and where the truth lies. For me, Tottenham have a perfect opportunity to prove with one single action for one single person that what we said is true. And that single person is Bryan Mbeumo. There he is. Prove to us he loves Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank loves him. He's Premier League proven, tried and tested, a superb player, a superb individual by all accounts, a gentleman and a really strong mentality as well as will to win. I mean, he's right there. And yet he's talking about going to Manchester United, or a team. You can't be a fan of the Premier League and not respect what Manchester United have done. However, that was a very, very long time ago. For me, they are in absolute freefall and are still a club in tremendous, tremendous trouble. Still no culture, still no identity. And yet he's going to likely choose them because of us. Why? It comes down to one thing, and that is money. So you have a golden opportunity to prove we do want to be that club. We do want to compete with the very best on earth. Sign him then, and it's done. That's it.
I don't have ever heard TJ speak so passionately about a player. But yeah,
you've got a chance, man. There's one guy, dude.
Yeah.
There's one guy. If you want to prove all the naysayers, including us, bring him.
Him or Eze. It doesn't matter which one.
Bro, I mean, listen, we've been talking about Eze for years. The point is that with this new manager and this player, and is he going to go to Tottenham? Is he going to United? Yeah. That is a unique situation, Miles. I'm not saying he's a better signing than Eze. I'm not saying that at all. Yeah. I'm saying here is a player that improves us overnight, and also
couldn't agree more.
We'll just quash all that nonsense. Tottenham don't pay that. Well, why don't we pay it? Pay it and be a big club. Don't talk about being a big club.
I don't ever heard T speak so passionately. We love it. Just on that with Brian.
Not for a couple of months anyway.
Not for a couple of months. Wait till the start of the season. It'll come back again.
It'll come.
I know it'll come back. Match week 1. Don't take us there yet. We'll wait. Just on Mbeumo, Fabrizio Romano has just given us an update on him. He said that he's one of the names that were discussed internally as soon as Frank signed. However, Manchester United currently remain in control of the situation, in conversation with Brentford, taking almost on daily basis, trying to find a solution. Let's come to you on this, Bill, before we ask Jim and Miles. I mean, your thoughts on the window, your thoughts on Romero, of course, the situation, and Sonny, and how you see this playing out in these next few weeks. Because you do feel we've got to make decisions soon. We're middle of June. We've got to bring players through the door. I think at this point, we were already engaging in bringing the likes of Maddison, Vicario to the club, if you remember when Andrew was here. So you feel things are going to have to accelerate in this next week or two to bring those players in, so we're not in a situation where we go into pre-season and we're still waiting to bring Frank signings in and we're already behind the ball. Are you with me?
Yeah, I think it's I think fans have been pretty patient. It's been 4 weeks since Bilbao. It's been maybe one week since Frank almost now. The Frank content has dropped. We've all been asking for it, so now it's time to get moving. I think within the next week or so we have to start signing players. Just on the Romero thing, I would do everything I can to keep him at the club. I would offer him a new contract, make it so he can't say no, give him that kind of wage, because I think if you're selling a player like Romero, you're immediately stepping backwards as a football club. He's one of the best centre-backs in the world. We've seen what he could do in that Europa League run. And I don't want to start a manager off on the back foot again like we did with Nuno, but like we did with Postecoglou, by selling Kane. I don't want to be selling off some of our best players straight away to immediately put Thomas Frank on the back foot. Sonny, I think, is a slightly different case because I think, he's a club legend. His form is waning. And like I said last night, I hope he just does whatever he wants to do. He's done that right. But if he wants to go, I hope we let him go. And he remains a legend forever. If he wants to stay, I'd have absolutely no problem keeping him as well, just because he's the face of our club at the moment. I think transfer window, we need to sign players like Mbeumo, Eze, that quality of player that are going to immediately lift our first 11. I think fans want to see those kind of signings. And I think as soon as we enter the Champions League, that's an immediate ticket to buying those kind of players. What's the point of being in it otherwise? What's the point of getting this money? What's the point of doing all these? We're on the 5th Beyonce date at the moment, aren't we? What's the point of doing all this?
We just got gifted, 70, 80, 90 million.
Yeah,
came out of nowhere, right? We just got gifted.
Exactly.
So
what's the point? What's the point of doing it if we're not going to raise the standard of the squad? So.
Especially when we just heard everything that the club generates goes back into the football team.
Yeah,
and Mbeumo, Semenyo. I want Premier League quality players that are proven in the Premier League. I think any of those names mentioned, KUDUS, I would include in that as well. Would be excellent signings. But I want to go out there now and splash some serious money on some quality players because we're in the Champions League, so let's act like a Champions League team.
That did make me laugh though, Bill. We're on our fifth night of Beyonce already. What's going on? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Let's come round to Mars on this point. Mars, you said a lot on this show with regards to you're going to reserve your judgment until the end of the window. I want to ask you in that point before I go to Jim to look for the close. How important is that next signing going to be in the calibre of that player? Because obviously we've just had Tell agreed to join us permanently, which feels to be fair. I think you've said as well, this has been a deal that really probably was pre-agreed before Frank came in. Yes, we've heard that Frank gave it the approval. He's studied the player. You know, we've heard this, to be honest, I don't want to say the word jargon, but we've heard what's come out.
Yeah.
How important will that show you the next calibre player that we're bringing in will be an indication for you? Or are you going to literally just tell me, no, Rick, doesn't matter who we're bringing in next. For me, I'm going to reserve my judgment until the 1st of September, and then I'll tell you.
The reason why I'm going to say 1st of September is because I wouldn't be surprised, and people don't shoot me for this, if one of our next 3 signings is going to be Cole Walker-Peters, Winks, or Skip, because of the homegrown issue that we've got. And we've got to sort that out. Otherwise, we can talk about all these names that we want. We've got a big problem coming next year. And unfortunately...
Miles, can we get back to Eze?
Yeah, I know. But you're gonna have to bring in one of these players to get these signings, and that's the big thing that I think a lot of people in the chat. The homegrown bit is a massive problem at this present moment. So I can see it being like, I think I heard Newcastle were going to be signing back Fraser Forster just because he's homegrown for them. So you can clearly see that a lot of teams are having this issue. So we're going to probably be in the same boat. So if Cole Walker-Peters is probably the first signing, say, was to walk through the door, I'm not going to be sitting there mad at it because I can see, I'm going to see what they're trying to do. I can see clearly the step they're trying to go in, and maybe that's where we're going to try and sign that big player maybe later on in the window to make sure we've got that all balanced out. For me, I think one player that a lot of people haven't even spoke about, and I know Spurs were linked with him, I think it was last year, and I think he'd be great next to Bentancur, and it'd just be great for North London derbies, but it'll be Timber. Timber is a defensive midfielder. We were linked with him about a year ago, and it all kind of cooled down. I know Liverpool have been linked with him, but he is someone, he's Feyenoord's captain. He would be perfect for Tottenham and Frank. And I'm just throwing that out there.
Julian Timber's brother, Miles.
Yeah, he's twin brother.
They're twins, aren't they?
Yeah, they are twins. And it will just be absolutely spot on. Because I saw Frank talking about Bentancur, which for me made me smile because I know how good Bentancur is. But I'd always thought Bentancur's he was good next to Højbjerg, but Højbjerg just had his limitations.
Of course.
But Bissouma was just too inconsistent for him. So I'm looking at that place where let's protect that defense next year, because that was very, very key to why we could see so many goals. Yeah, even under Ange and before Ange. So I'm looking at it going, that's why I'm going to wait to the 1st of September, because there's so much that needs to be done because of what we've done in the last 2 years, 3 years regarding homegrown. So I'm not going to get mad at certain signings this season if they have to happen. So that's why I'm putting that out there. We could talk about the Ezes, we could talk about the Mbuemos and all that first, but we've got a major issue that we need to sort out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's fair. Look, I know actually on that point, Jim, I mean, you've been doing a lot of studying just on the homegrown. I know this has been something you've been massively mentioning a lot on Oh So Spurs about the limitations, Jim, we're going to face. How much in reality do you think that is a problem, Jim, when it comes to this summer? Because I know this is something you've been banging the drum a lot on Oh So Spurs for, and I would recommend a lot of our viewers in this to go over to Jim and see a lot of the content they're doing around this point, because it is a massive problem that we just simply can't shy away from, Jim, right?
Correct, yeah, and I'll post a link now in the chat, that's right, to where you can just see how we are from the squad totals for UEFA and for the Premier League, and you'll get a glimpse of it. But effectively, you're allowed 28 players in your squad, but the UEFA rules are different to the Premier League rules, and the key thing is what defines a club-grown player and a homegrown player is slightly different in each competition. So even though we've got allocations in the Premier League, we don't have them in UEFA. So as an example, 4 of our 28-man squad have to be club-trained in UEFA. We've got 1 club-trained player. So we're at a 4-player disadvantage, effectively, to the other teams we're often competing against who have got a well-organised squad like a Liverpool. And that 1 player is Brandon Austin. So, there's not much going on there. We've tried to address the homegrown player situation. I think that's why big money was spent on Solanke, and that's why money was spent on James Maddison, because you want decent players in those 4-person spots. But it's spot on in the sense that don't be surprised if some signings come across less glamorous, because we won't have a choice but to sign players that are in that homegrown bracket, like a Kyle Walker-Peters. It's better that than
I'd take him, to be fair, Jim. I'd take Kyle Walker.
I've got a solution. I've got a club trained player and a big signing all in one. Harry Kane. Let's bring him home.
There you go. Club grown, homegrown. You got the lot.
All three on the bingo card. Let's do it.
But yeah, I think we've got to go away from having 4 goalkeepers in the squad and start having a properly structured squad effectively. But I completely agree with what you guys have said as well, though, that this has to be a window where you find the balance of getting a couple, not one Dom Slanky type signing, but you want to see us go for 2 or 3 of those bigger money options. They don't have to be stupendous money, because we've got to be realistic of who we are, right? When we want a senior player, their agent of any player before they join any club is going to be ringing up Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, well, not necessarily Arsenal, but Liverpool, City, PSG, Real Madrid, and saying, by the way, my client's going to go to Spurs. Are you sure you don't want them first? Because they're going to get bigger wages there. They're bigger football clubs, and that is just the reality of the pecking order. So we do kind of get the best of the rest options, but the catch-22 is, unless we find a way of earning a reputation that we aren't best of the rest by consistently getting these better players, paying them the big money, and consistently doing well, we're always going to be stuck with that issue. So we do need to find a way of kind of breaking the mold, and that is consistent success over 4 or 5 years in a row, and continuing to grow our revenues and being ambitious. I think Chelsea have no right to be in that pack still, but they still are. They still have that pull. They've got that hangover from their legacy, from their old era. And I think when Todd Boehly came in and he spent that aggressively as he did, people went, yep, if I go there, I'm going to earn mega bucks. And that owner is on a warpath to make sure they get a trophy over the line as well. And they're really, really hungry to do it. So you kind of need to get the reputation, a bit like Newcastle have got, right? Players, Tonali is not joining Newcastle if Mike Ashley is still there, even if he puts the exact same bid in as what got him over the line. So it is tough to get it right, but you also do need to keep a little bit of that young player conveyor belt going. Otherwise, the squad stagnates and more players don't become homegrown who are really good, like Lucas Berryvale will eventually. So you've got to get that balance. I think we'll definitely go hard for Semenyo. It just doesn't seem like he's got the appetite to join us, and you'd need the player to be pushing a bit to get Brentford to sell. They don't need the money. That's a key thing. He's in the bargaining position with his contract. He's got multiple clubs after him. One of them, he apparently publicly wants to go to over us as well. So it's a tough one, that one.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how it does play out. And I think it just brings to that point, doesn't it, Jim? You know, it's hard to see how the club are going to make multiple signings in a row of top draw, top quality players, given the restrictions they have got around those homegrown issues. So it will be interesting how they do navigate with that and how they deal with that. I do think, though, Miles, if Harry Winks and Oliver Skip come back, I'm not sure even I can carry on this podcast. I think we'd have to. Draft in a new host, because I don't think I can come back. If that is what we're going to say, if I go on holiday for 2 weeks in July and that's what I come back to, I don't think I want it back. I think you can have it.
If I said to you, no, it's going to bring in say a Walton.
I mean, no respect to Harry Winks or Oliver Skip, no respect to the boys, but can't go back there again.
That was an absolutely superb addition. I don't mean any disrespect,
but we can't do that. We can't do that. I think even Bill have to deactivate X when you build with that. How can we survive that? I tell you. Going to be interesting summer. It is going to be interesting summer. Give me one name you want to see. Give me one name. Tej, for you, is it Mbeumo? Is that the one name you want to see?
That's more about money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah.
He's right there. I mean, Jim's probably right. He probably does favour another club over us. But if Thomas Frank says, listen, man, here's your 80 million. I love you to pieces. We're going to build the front line around you. We really want to do things next season. You get to stay in London. We've got a shot. And this is homegrown and all that sort of stuff aside, right? This is just about proving that we're a big club. Or go get Eze then. Go get go and bring in someone that's going to get the fans excited. Break that transfer ceiling again.
Record.
Brother, let's be honest. It ain't that high. So go break that, dude. What are we
Yeah, but look-
talking about? It's Tottenham Hotspur. Go
Yeah.
break that, up the wages, go to
Yeah.
50%, go to 55%, behave like a big club and
Yeah.
watch these players come in, because Jim's absolutely right, man. They're going to call everyone else and go, listen, man, he's going to go to Tottenham unless, well, let's eradicate that phone call. Be that club. Be that club that people want to come to. If Lucas Berval is saying, I'm delighted to be at Tottenham, I want to stay here and become a baller and a legend for this club, that's the kind of thing that we need to incentivize, man. We need to motivate more top quality players to think and act like this man. And you're not going to do that unless you're paying the big bucks, man. This is reality. This is the world. So there's 3 people on that list, 4 people on that list, Ricky, and we all know who they are. Go get a couple of them, behave like a big club.
Tej, love that, babe, like a big club. Let's start
Love
giving
you,
it go
bro.
on.
Nice to see you.
Look at
Thanks,
that.
everybody. Billy, great being on with you, bro. And Jim, again, a complete pleasure. Miles, lovely to
guys.
meet
Been a
you. Sure,
pleasure,
I'll see
man.
you again soon. Rick, love to you, to the viewers
Love
and the
to you, bro.
listeners.
Love to you, man.
Yeah, man. Let's keep it going.
We're
Spurs family. Bada bing. I'm out.
Bada bing, bada bing. We're putting DJ back on the sun. We'll bring him up very, very soon. Bill, thank you so much. The poor bloke's done a 48-hour stint with me. Bill, we all good? We okay? We excited?
We're all good,
still
man. We're surviving. I look forward to bringing you on my way back from work tomorrow or something else. My name, by the way, would be Chavi Simons. That's what I go for.
Oh, Chavi Simon.
That'll be my big name.
Yeah. Put him in there, Bill. Why not? That'll be a cracking sign. If we can get him over the line, that'll be great.
I'll get him back. That'll be my other
Get him back. Get that trophy back. For our listeners all know, Bill still parading that lovely custom-made Emerson Royale model. I'm not sure you can bring it with him on a match day, though. Can we get it in the stadium, Bill? Can you get that in the stadium?
It weighs a ton. Honestly, it's fully metal.
Bill, we love you very much. We're going to see you very, very soon. Miles, thank you so much. I know, like I say, we might be giving you a break over the summer. I'm not sure your missus loves me, but I love you, so we'll get there eventually, right?
We'll have to live together, Rick. Both our missus will check us out.
I know.
It's fine. It's fine. I forgot to tell people where to go and vote,
Please,
actually.
remind people, please.
I'm going to just put it in the link in the chat now so people can go there. But if you go to Spurs Kings TV as well, it's pinned to our X and everything like that. Come vote there. And my player is, by the way, so we can go, it would be Eze. But Timber is the first guy I mentioned, but Eze would be the guy that I will want to see in a Tottenham shirt next year. He just screams Tottenham. Everything about him screams Tottenham. Sorry, Palace. I'm sorry, but he's that good. They know he's that good. And just the way he basically commanded that FA Cup run at the end is something, you kind of knew that's the sort of player. I know people talk about Jack Grealish, but Jack Grealish for me is Manchester City, which player has ever left and done well? That's my only question.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It is an interesting one. I mean, just on that point, we will pin that message for everybody on Last Word on Spurs. They can get voting. Like I say, there's Ash in there, there's Jim in there as well. So like I say, we'll do that across the Spurs community. And Miles, remind everyone what date is that show for those to check it out on Spurs Kings? What date would that be on?
I think it's 6th of July, but if whatever the Saturday is of the first weekend in July, that's when we're going to do the show. So I think it's the 6th. Now you've completely thrown me, but I think it's the 6th.
It shows you what Tottenham. It shows what this Tottenham community is like. We've got a wall ceremony. We've done the break date of the wall ceremony in that Tottenham. We haven't got a bloody clue what's going on.
It's
just
me.
normal service being resumed. Normal service.
I'm expecting a call from you, Ricky, on that day to be going, we need to do a show. It's an emergency, and I'm going to have to cancel the award ceremony.
I've just signed it. Say, drop it.
Drop it.
Fantastic. Jim, let's close with you. Like I say, I think really important I mention this. A lot of good stuff on Oh So Spurs around, like we discussed at the end of this show. The situation with regards to the restrictions over the homegrown quota, lots of stuff over football finance gone over there, very niche stuff that you don't get over here because I'm too busy losing my heads over transfer signings and getting wonderful journalists coming in and telling us who we're going to sign next. Jim, thank you so much. We're going to find what you're doing over there.
Yeah, I've got an episode dropping tomorrow at 7 a.m. around. We looked into with some people who are qualified with MBAs in the field, but how much more could Spurs spend on players and infrastructure, and what could they do with the money if they were purchased effectively by someone with very deep pockets? So I thought that was quite an interesting chat to have. And we've got 4 more episodes coming this week as well that I'm recording in the background. So yeah, feel free to check it out if you like. And looking forward to it. But my player would go on. Sorry. No,
please carry on, please.
My player would be, I think it's going to be Eze as well. I know a lot of people will say he's going to be some flash in the plan. I saw Sean, who's a good guy. Sean kind of said he could be the next Grealish. And I get the reservations, but he's got that swagger. He's just got that confidence. And I fear he's going to end up in a Liverpool shirt. For some reason, I can just see him in one. But I'd love it if we just whack the money down and he went, you know what, let's do it. I want aboard the Thomas Frank train. So
yeah, well, just on that point,
Rick, who would your player be, Rick?
who my player be? I probably would say Eze. I think it's just sad about Eze. Already, like you say, when you see him pictures, even in the in the white kit. I mean, it's just saying that he looks like a Tottenham player. He plays like a Tottenham player. It would be special to have him here. I think it'd be great. And again, it will just come down to, I think, a number of things that we discussed on this show. It's number one about if Tottenham are willing to, number one, go to Palace and actually pay the fee to get him out of Palace, which again is hitting that release clause. We know the biggest thing with, I think, Eze's situation, as me and Jim have found out with a lot of journalists we're speaking to, you're going to have to pay that fee, a lot of it up front. I think that's a big problem for a lot of clubs, that you have to go to Palace and pay that chunk of the fee up front. You can't do it on installments. You've got to go to Palace and you've got to pay that amount. And not a lot of clubs, I know people might laugh about this. Yeah,
Chelsea, what they do with Enzo, you just have to pay slightly more, but pay it in installments. This is what big clubs do. They will go and say,
how is that Champions League money paid to us? The Champions League money that we just got.
It's probably just come in one go.
Probably does, right?
Yeah.
We haven't had it. We haven't had it yet. The challenge is, like, Marlon, you spot on that. If you can't afford the upfront capital, the way around it is to pay more over installments. So it's actually, you can do it, but you've got to say, you're going to get an extra 10, 15 million pounds than you would from Chelsea. But so you are actually again, you're at a disadvantage from not having that money up front. So yeah.
Listen, we'll keep our fingers crossed. I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful Min-hyuk T. Thank you. We'll see you very soon. The wonderful Billie T. Make sure you say hello to him. There's loads of comments saying everyone's getting hugs from Bill out in the street. Bill, you must be doing a lot of sympathising out there, counselling right on the street, literally.
Always, mate. Always. That's my job. Yeah.
It comes to that point now when you meet people in public, people just hug you and go, thank you. Like, what are you thanking me for? Doesn't matter. Thank you. Fantastic. Brilliant. Although my wife's getting a bit worried why all these blokes keep hugging me. But you know what I mean? Only Tottenham. Thank you so much. And a wonderful, I won't say women as well, because that could cause another. We're not going down that route. We're definitely going down that route on this show. That could go somewhere we don't want to go on this show. We've got the wonderful Jim over at Oh So Spurs. Please go and check Oh So Spurs podcast out. Jim's doing some wonderful stuff there. And the Marlon from the Spurs Kings. We've got an award ceremony. We need to confirm the date. It's so Tottenham. We might not even know the date to our own ceremony, but we will find it out. Listen, from the 6,500 that have been watching us live, thank you so much for all your support. We are hopefully going to be able to have a break tomorrow. Tottenham don't do anything crazy. At least give it 24, 48 hours, please. From us all, keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.